Hello and welcome to WordBirds, a birds of a feather conversation amongst people that care about words. Today on the show, I have Cynthia Spiers and Mariana Just. They are the head of content and demand at Acrolinx. Today, we're going to talk about the unity between content and demand. We're going to talk about how generative AI is really nothing without careful governance and the belief that machines will not replace smart, creative people. Let's sit back and get some insight from the fly. Well, hello there. Welcome to the show, Mariana and Cynthia.
Hey, Chris. Well, hi.
Hi, Chris. Thanks for having us.
Let's go ahead and jump right into the quick fire. I think that's a fantastic place to start. I'm going to say a thing, and I just want you to say a thing back. Mariana, amazing content is.
Amazing content powers the customer experience.
Cynthia, what is it?
Amazing content is conversational, how we talk to each other. It's clear. It captures people's interest. It drives them to want more, and it's ready to make an impact.
Concise or descriptive?
Concise.
I got to go with concise. Plain and simple, makes its points clearly. Using
Mariana,
a human voice, super
the
important.
company with the best brand voice is.
Other than Acrolinx?
Other than Acrolinx.
Adobe. I really like Adobe. I think it's fun. It's creative. It's inclusive. I love the Adobe products, and so I would say Adobe for me.
Cynthia?
And I got to go with MailChimp. I think
Oh,
before they were acquired, but love it. Casual, smart, concise, really relatable voice. I've
they do a
always
great job.
great job.
Love that one.
hmm
Your best piece of content advice. Let's start with Cynthia.
So I would say never neglect your content and think it doesn't matter because content really drives everything. But more words don't necessarily make it better. So say what you mean without a lot of fluff. Avoid those empty buzzwords, get rid of the passive voice, just make it really clear and concise and conversational with that good personality, and you'll be in good shape.
Mariana?
Repurpose your content. Plain and simple.
Fantastic. And when I am creating content, I always blank.
Check it with Acrolinx. Make sure it's
Good
up
one.
to your brand and style standards and has all
Well
the
played.
qualities that you need for it to be amazing.
Good one. I always have my customer in mind when I'm creating content.
Fantastic. All right, let's jump into the conversation. Kind of excited to have you both on. An amazing team of female executives of the year 2022, both in a very strong marketing organization. Mariana, tell me a little bit about, well, no, you know what? Let's go in the supply chain order. Cynthia, tell me a little bit about what you do.
Sure. So I lead a team of 4 people and one outside web contractor. And we basically have responsibility for content marketing, web and SEO, PR and communications, video, and product marketing. So we wear a ton of hats, but it's a really, really talented, collaborative, and dedicated team. We span several time zones: US, UK, Germany, and Australia. So that actually really helps with the team's productivity. So it's a bit of a follow the sun model. When someone's sleeping, someone else is always getting work done. We follow a strategy for all of our respective areas of responsibility, but we make sure that there's room for flexibility in those strategies because our business moves so quickly and every day is a bit different. I would say about the team, there's a ton of varied skills, which means we don't really have to rely that much on outside agencies. We can do a lot of the work ourselves. So, everything from outstanding research and writing skills to video creation, production, design, web content management, SEO, and web analytics. So we're really covering it all with my team. So it's great. It's a very productive, good, positive experience. And I've been here for 6 years, a little over 6 years.
Fantastic. I would classify that as the creation aspect of the supply chain, which
Absolutely.
Mariana, I think would make you the consumption side of the supply chain.
Yeah, so I think, based on the role I lead a revenue marketing team, right? And that's exactly it. Both demand gen marketers and business development reps, which is a little bit unique for some teams. I kind of consistently grew over the last 5 years into this role, which started with a couple of people on the team, and now we are this global revenue marketing team of 6 marketers, 8 BDRs across the US, England, Germany, the UAE, as of recently. We are 100% focused on pipeline creation. So that's really our North Star. That's how we are compensated, really. And so everything that we do needs to feed into that pipeline machine, which is responsible for the, the business creation side or the of Acrolinx. And I guess because all of that is really hard on itself, we've got market saturation, we've got generative AI now in ChatGPT. We're constantly trying to innovate, and whether that's how we think about a new campaign, how we distribute that campaign, we we've got developing prospecting materials that we need to develop. So there's a lot that goes into that entire process. There's marketing ops, the foundation with reporting and analytics, and keeping sort of the pulse check on those pipeline vitals, if you will. So that's a little bit of the team in a nutshell.
So let's talk about the interlock here, because I mean, we've got one person and one organization creating, one organization consuming. Um, you must work together fairly closely to make that go. You're running a lot of programs. You need a lot of things. How is that? How does that work?
So I don't know, Mariana, do you want to like?
Yeah, I mean, I think we should. The team not just at Acrolinx, right? I have a strong opinion on this that content and demand gen need to really work hand in hand, and the teams need to be aligned from a goals and KPIs perspective, right? I guess I'll jump into my provocative thought of the day that there's no demand gen without content. And so I think one of the biggest mistakes that companies make at times is to let's get this demand gen engine going without even prioritizing content, right? And because content is everywhere. If you don't have a demand gen machine, and if you're just a CEO starting out, you can get content out on you can start to blog, you can be on social media, right? So having those two teams prioritized and working together is quite important in my point of view. And but again, I think those common goals need to be very well defined, and both teams need to have that sort of common and measurable goal in place. Right now, we're really focused on customer marketing as a critical initiative. So working with Cynthia very closely and Cynthia's team on here's our goals, here's where we're going to distribute that content, right? Because then she has that intelligence to know, okay, is it free content? We'll blog about it. Is it premium content? We'll need to develop a guide for that initiative. So if we're not working that way, we're not successful. And so that's my view, Cynthia. I'm not sure how you see
Yeah,
that.
and I agree, Mari. I think, shared goals for sure. I think something that we've done more recently that I think has really had a positive impact is we've aligned around thematic content. It used to be that my team sort of, we can create a lot of content and we'd create and pass it over to Mari's team to activate. And that was working well, but we, about a year and a half ago, decided that we would start building thematic content quarterly. And I think that's made a positive impact on our ability to sort of unite around that theme. Each quarter we decide what we're going to be, primarily focused on. For example, this quarter we're building content that maps to the topic of AI generated content in the enterprise, hot topic. And so once we've settled on that theme, we're building out a core premium asset, and then around that, a complete set of derivative content that's ready for all the channels that Mariana and team are putting it out into the world. And so I think that we create a bit of a message platform for the demand gen team so they understand the scope of the topic, how to talk about it, how to carry it across the buying journey. So in theory, they have everything they need to go and put it out programmatically. So I think that's made a big difference in helping us be even more aligned. because we all know, what we've got going on and where we're focused quarter to quarter. And that really gives, I think, a suite of materials to Mari's team to be able to activate really effectively.
So, Cynthia, it sounds like, I mean, based on the requirements, the need, the volume of programs that Mariana's running, um, there's a huge need for a constant need for creation, content creation. And you have a relatively lean team. How are you able to keep up with the volume requirements?
Yeah, it's definitely a small team, and we're able to do it. I have to say, really talented people really helps. I've got some crackerjack content creators. We don't rely on a lot of outside content creation. We also use our own product, Acrolinx, in this process, which helps us a lot with efficiency. We save a lot of time on editorial. We know that the content we're producing, we're checking it. It's up to our brand and style standards. So we save a lot of time there. And I think that helps with our velocity. I think doing the theme approach too, we're all organized quarter to quarter. We know exactly what we need to knock out, and everybody is, pulling their weight and getting it done. So that definitely helps with the velocity. But I do think having Acrolinx is really helpful as well.
Well, and when you think in terms of the editorial time associated with an individual document in a business, because there's a writer, there's a subject matter expert that creates the content, and then it comes to somebody like you that's going to edit that content, and the editorial process is back and forth between you and that subject matter expert, and that could take days, weeks to get that piece of content ready to move forward, and then eventually it needs to make it to somebody like me, and I need to look at and you know what you run into when you send documents to me. Pulling back the curtain, everybody, I run this team. I'm the CMO at this company, so it comes to me, and I decide, hey, this is really neat. Let's go in a completely different direction. And now we go back to the subject matter expert and the editorial. And this is a thing. This is not an arbitrary example. This happened last week. And so days turn into weeks, turn into months for a single piece of content. And your ability to streamline that editorial process and take the review out of it. Like, how do you know, back in the host role, how do you know if your content is good and ready to go to production?
So we set up a benchmark. It needs to score. I like above an 85, but 80 is above 80. That's an Acrolinx score. That's what our product assigns to content when
What
it
does that
checks it.
mean? What is an Acrolinx score?
So an Acrolinx score is a representation of the quality of your content, and how aligned it is to the standards that you've set as a business. So does it showcase the right tone of voice? Does it include the right terminology, the way your organization talks about its products and services? Does it use inclusive language? Is it scannable? There's a whole host of characteristics that we lock in on for our content. We set those standards, and then we check it every time we write something to make sure that it's aligning with those standards. So if it's an 80 or above, that means it's doing a fairly good job. I mean, as I said, love it to be even higher, as close as we can get to 100, but that's not, there's no such thing as perfection. So we do as best we can. And I think it helps me a lot when I see a piece of content. It's got its Acrolinx score assigned to it. I know where it stands. That saves me a ton of work. I don't have to spend as much time if I were just editing something from scratch. We'd get really bogged down in those long editorial cycles.
And back to somebody that works in the business, I mean, what I like to say to folks is that you would not be able to do half the things that you do
Absolutely.
outside of the content space if you had to do the things that Acrolinx does for you. With the volume of content that you have, you would spend 100% of your time involved in editorial.
Right.
And the fact of the matter is that you don't. You own the website, you own product marketing. There's all kinds of things that you're able to do because your time is cleared up to do those things.
Absolutely.
And if you didn't have that level of automation and objective scoring, you'd just be a really glorified editor with a VP title, which would be disappointing.
That would be disappointing.
Wouldn't get any of the
and I've
things that we
worked in
get.
organizations like that, where there was an editorial team, and every customer-facing piece of content had to go through that team. And boy, talk about a bog down. I mean, you would wait and wait and wait. It really, efficiency takes a hit. So, we don't have that challenge. Sometimes we can produce content so quickly, it's really the design cycle that ends up taking us a little bit more time because we do that externally. So, from a production creation of content standpoint, we're able to do things very quickly.
So that content gets handed over, moves into the demand organization for use. Either that's a piece of premium content that somebody's going to download, or it's the content that fills out a landing page, or it might be email cadences. Let's take a dark example. You get this content and you put it out in the world. It's got an Acrolinx score. It's high. It qualifies. You put it out in the world and it doesn't do what you expect it to do, Mariana. What do you do? Like, how do you optimize for that type of situation?
As we go back to the drawing board sometimes, and I think one of the things that we do as a demand gen team is we look at, are there other areas that perhaps wasn't as efficient? The channel, right, is one way that we could look back at this, the audience, and did this do what it meant to do? When we talked to Cynthia's team and brainstormed this whole concept about where he was going to go. So there is sort of that recycling of that information passing back to the team. We are very close now with working with our marketing operations team to understand content consumption and give Cynthia's team visibility into how the content is performing at the point of distribution, right? I think Acrolinx does an amazing job at giving us information about how content might perform and during the creation process, but we also need to have very good insight into how that is performing. So that right now is something we're very excited to be able to provide to Cynthia's team and have an understanding of, we didn't bring in the MQLs and therefore the meetings that we were expecting, and last thing, that North Star, which is pipeline that I was talking about earlier, didn't produce. And that's okay, because everything is an experiment sometimes, and we know exactly what's going to work. Sometimes we'll try something new that doesn't work, and that is completely fine. We have the reporting capabilities to track that and move quickly and figure that out quickly.
So you're able to give actionable feedback that you're finding through consumption back to the content organization versus just saying, hey, this stuff doesn't work. Like, we created it, we think it's right, we learned from our audience, and we're aligning better with the audience. You almost might be able to say it's audience aligned content.
Absolutely.
It's a process.
Mm-hmm. And that's where the theme is really helpful too, because then we can know too, we'll develop a theme at a target persona or a group of people. And then having that data and that insight from Mariana's team really helps us to know, gee, that's not as popular of a theme, or people are not as receptive to that theme as perhaps we thought. And again, like, that's okay. We go back to the drawing board and we funnel that into our planning and strategy and move on from there. So really helpful to have that kind of closed loop situation going on.
So it'd be hard to have a conversation right now in the world in which we live without asking about generative AI. Mariana, you have a bunch of BDRs. How is generative AI impacting the BDR outreach process?
It is certainly making the team efficient. And there is an opportunity here to do more. And I mean, this whole concept of being able to rewrite existing content, right? It's something that we are very excited about. What's crucial for us is that we have content governance in place. So therefore, we can actually use generative AI in a way that feels perhaps a little less risky. And but the team is extremely excited. Of course, it's all very, very new for us. We are taking an approach where we are working together. We're not letting people go off and do their own thing on generative AI or using ChatGPT. As a team, we're having conversations about creative ways to use it, and the team is excited about it. There's certainly an opportunity here to make us all very, very, very efficient, because everyone at the end of the day in an organization is a writer, right? And so, but you got to have that alignment with your brand voice, your brand guidelines, and without content governance, you can't really have that. So I think we are actually in an amazing, excellent position to be using generative AI in a way that I don't think a lot of organizations are in a position to right now.
So what I'm hearing is logging into ChatGPT and saying, write me an email, problematic. Being able to leverage content that you know, content that you've created, that you've essentially governed and created collections around to be able to be the basis of content creation, that's the valuable solution. Just off the shelf, risk of misinformation, disinformation. Feel free to continue my sentences. I'm feeding you words, but is that roughly what y'all are talking about?
No, yeah, absolutely. That risk isn't there anymore, right? I think for us, it's that body of content is high quality content based on what Cynthia mentioned earlier, how we score content here at Acrolinx. That body of content that we build through that collection that you just talked about is scores. Whether we can decide 80 and above, right? And we're only going to use this content, and that is an amazing efficient way to rewrite content.
Fantastic. Cynthia, is it playing into what you do at all? I mean, you're the creativity engine. So leveraging generative AI is interesting and efficient to get bulk content out. But do you think that at any point in the near future it's going to replace the work that your team does from a creative domain expertise standpoint?
Not replace. No, I think it's definitely an ad. It's an efficiency ad. We can, ideate. We can generate topic ideas. We can, ask ChatGPT or the like to help with, creative headlines and that sort of thing. But we're then having the layer of being able to govern that content through Acrolinx and ensure that it's mapped to our standards, which then, improves the quality of the collection of content. And I don't, this was going to be my provocative statement. I personally don't feel like, machines will ever take the place of human content creators. I think it can add a lot to the efficiency and the planning and ideation of that content. But as far as, the written word, I think the best performing, most compelling content will always be written by humans. And then, there'll be efficiency and quality help from AI along the way.
I like that. PSOTD, not so bad. This is normally the time when we would break for the PSOTD or provocative statement of the day, but you've both covered those, I think. So we're
ahead of you.
I think we're there. I think computers will not replace creative humans. Really interesting. Mariana, yours was?
I said that there's no demand gen without content, but I can give you a couple more if you'd like.
Oh, I would like. Throw one at me.
I hate when people say that content marketing is a channel. Content marketing is not a channel, people.
Go on.
Why?
Why? It fuels the channel, but I don't think it's a channel. What else? Content isn't a sales tactic. I think content is education. Content is helping our audience and helping them find what they need. And we got to do that with content before we use it as a selling tactic.
Fantastic. Ladies, thank you very much for being on the show. I would say I'd love to have you back sometime, but I see both of you every single day. So we'll probably do this again in the near future. Thank you very much.
Thanks for listening to WordBirds. WordBirds is hosted by Chris Willis, produced by Charlotte Baxter Reed, and brought to you by Acrolinx. For more information on Acrolinx, visit www.acrolinx.com.